Would you like a yarn that is silky smooth, sensitive skin friendly, warm weather appropriate, and makes beautiful use of an agricultural byproduct? If your answer is yes, absolutely, keep watching to see my review of sugarcane from Circulo. Hey there, yarn crazies. Welcome to my review of sugarcane by Circulo. Wool can be wonderful, but not when the weather turns hot or if you have sensitive skin that says nope to animal fibers. While most knitters and crocheters know about cotton and synthetics as alternatives to wool, there are a whole host of other wool-free options out there that can be wonderful to work with and even more wonderful to wear. That's especially true when high temperatures and high humidity are upon us. Sugarcane is made from viscose, a plant-based alternative to silk, and it's one of my favorite personal fiber contents to both work with and to wear against my skin. We're going to dig into the details on the yarn, and we're going to discuss the things that you need to keep in mind when considering this or any other viscose yarn for an upcoming project. Sugar production from sugarcane leaves behind a great deal of pulp. Circulo Yarns in Brazil is utilizing that pulpy byproduct to manufacture this beautifully drapey, silky textured yarn. I was in love with this stuff from the moment I first laid eyes and fingers on the sample skein that arrived at the shop. It has a beautiful sheen and it feels so wonderful against the skin. I couldn't wait to make something with it. And it was a huge hit with customers who participated in the Circulo yarn tasting we hosted here in the shop back in 2022. Sugarcane currently comes in 10 beautiful shades, and I certainly hope they're planning on adding more to the collection in the future. The neutrals are very clean, and the more saturated colorways are very deep and rich, and so far have proven to be fairly color fast. Each 100-gram skein contains 153 yards or 140 meters, and the manufacturer recommends a US 7 or 4.5 millimeter needle or a 3.5 millimeter or US E crochet hook. That places sugarcane in the DK weight category, and my wraps per inch test yielded a consistent 11 wraps per inch, so I definitely agree with that classification. According to the label, washing instructions are to hand wash and to lay flat to dry. We'll talk more about that later. Let's look at some swatches. Here is my unwashed knit swatch done on a US size 5 needle, which is smaller than the manufacturer's recommended 7. I made that choice because I am a loose knitter and generally have to go down 2 needle sizes to get gauge. Based on my experience with this yarn, I recommend a US 6 for loose knitters, and I'll explain why in just a bit. If you tend to be in the middle of the road or on the tight side with your tension, I would recommend sticking with the size 7 recommended on the ball band. Now, here is the unwashed crochet swatch with rows of half double crochet on the bottom and Tunisian simple stitch on the top. The regular crocheted section was done using a 4.5 millimeter hook, and the Tunisian section was done with a 5 millimeter hook. Initially, I tried using the size of hook indicated on the label, and I disliked the look and the feel of the fabric, so I geared up to larger hooks, and I was really glad that I did. Now, we need to touch on the subject of washing and caring for viscose items before I show you my wash swatches and discuss them. Viscose is like cotton in that it can shrink if washed in hot water, and it will definitely shrink if you toss it in the dryer. Viscose is at its most vulnerable when it is wet. The surface of the fiber is very delicate at that stage, so if you are like me and you avoid hand washing when it isn't absolutely necessary, wash items made with sugarcane or other viscose yarns in a fine mesh lingerie baggie like this one. Use a mild detergent and set the washing machine to cold and gentle, and do not put it in the dryer. That's how I have always taken care of my viscose and viscose blend items, and I have had good luck with that process. One of the things I like about using those lingerie baggies, they tend to stand out visually and texturally from other things in my cold wash colors load, and it makes it a lot easier for me to remember to pull things out of them when I am transferring things to the dryer. You are going to notice something funny happen when you wash viscose. It gets very heavy and terribly stiff, and it looks really dull. This is because viscose is extremely absorbent, so please don't freak out when you pull viscose out of the sink or the wash and it almost feels like a hard little ball. Just lay it out flat and reshape it and let it be. As the fabric dries, it will get softer and softer and the shine will return. Viscose doesn't like to be wrung out, so skip trying to squeeze every little drop of water out of it. Now let's take a look at my washed swatches here. These just got a quick and gentle soaking before I pressed out the excess water with a towel, reshaped them, and let them dry. Here's the washed knit swatch. The stitches evened out and filled out beautifully. The texture of the fabric became super smooth and it feels fantastic. Although I had hit the gauge listed on the ball band of 22 stitches and 27 rows per 4 inches initially, after washing I got 20 stitches and 28 rows per 4 inches. Here's the wash crochet swatch. Again, the stitches filled out and evened out and that lovely sheen got amplified, but my gauge reading also changed here too. Before washing I had 16 stitches and 16 rows and 4 inches in the Tunisian section, but after washing I ended up with 17 stitches and 18 rows. The moral of this story: when working with viscose, give yourself the gift of a washed swatch. Your readings could change quite a bit, and a washed swatch takes less time to make than ripping out and starting over because you made the wrong decision about the size to make. Ask me how I know. I must mention something about tool material choice here too. If you're crocheting with sugarcane, just about any kind of hook will do. But if you plan to knit with it, here's my advice on needles. If you are a loose knitter, you might seriously consider bamboo or some other type of wood, because that little bit of extra friction between the wood and the yarn can provide some extra control. If you tend to be a tight knitter, I would encourage you to use the sharpest metal needle you can possibly lay your hands on. Due to sugarcane structure and content, there is almost no friction between the plies, making it easier to split if you were working with blunt tips. If your tension tends to be somewhere in that happy middle of the road zone, choose whichever needle material you find the most comfortable and gives you the best gauge match for your project. By the way, if you haven't seen it already, go check out my video on how to save your sanity and wind slippery yarns like this one into balls and cakes that don't come apart. On to patterns and projects. There are 8 really nice patterns designed specifically for this yarn available directly from Circulo's website. Considering sugarcane's care requirements, they are all garments and accessories specifically for adults because, let's be really honest, while this yarn would make the best summer weight baby blankets and onesies ever, the washing requirements, well, what sleep-deprived new parent has time to deal with special care laundry? As cute as some of Circulo's patterns are, I chose a sleeveless top called the box pleat top to be the shop sample because beads! I'm a sucker for beaded items, and I had been eagerly hunting for the perfect yarn to pair with this pattern for many months. I'm extremely happy with it, although I did make a few changes, namely making one size smaller than the size charts would have dictated. And the back of this top is just plain stockinette instead of the bamboo stitch called out in the pattern. I did that to reduce the weight of the fabric and to reduce the time to knit it up. 100% viscose is just as heavy as mercerized cotton or mulberry silk, so keep that in mind when you are choosing patterns. By the way, links to all of these patterns and these resources are in the show notes for you to reference later. If you don't want to make one of these, and none of the patterns on the Circulo website quite do it for you, how do you go about picking something appropriate? I mean, let's face it, this yarn is amazing, but trying to pair it with a pattern that calls for a bouncy, lofty wool is going to result in some serious crying and swearing. The first thing that you want to consider when you're looking at whether or not a pattern is going to be a good fit is choose a viscose yarn or something that behaves very similarly. When I was rummaging around in my favorited patterns on Ravelry looking for something to use with sugarcane, I looked at patterns that used a DK weight yarn and filtered for the following fiber contents: bamboo, cotton, rayon, silk, or tencel. From there, you need to take a close look at the yarns the patterns call for. If it calls for cotton, make sure it wants a smooth, heavy mercerized cotton, not one of the lighter, lintier, unmercerized cottons. The same kind of concept applies to the other materials I listed. You want patterns designed for yarns that have a lot of drape, a smooth texture, and a decent amount of weight, and that don't have to hold a heavy blocking to look right. Absolutely avoid patterns that call for wools, wool blends, and acrylic or polyester yarns that are designed to be fluffy and light and to mimic animal fibers. Also, consider the overall size a garment, because no matter how amazing that oversized hooded cardigan would feel if you made it with sugarcane, you probably aren't going to want to wear it if it weighs several pounds dry and 15 to 18 pounds when it's wet. On the flip side, sugarcane can be an amazing choice for items like those headbands, cowls, and fingerless mitts you might want to wear on spring and fall days when you need just that little extra warmth, but wool is still going to be a bit too much. Here are a few patterns I think would be great matches for sugarcane, and this time the patterns from my fellow crochet fiends are going to come first, and I found quite a few. We're starting with the Lisa Summer sweater, the Speedwell cardigan, the Peekaboo tank, the Montego shawl, the Paige Sweetheart top, the Aphrodite's dance shawl, I love the edges on that, and the Rosebud Dreamer tee. For my fellow knitters, may I suggest you look at the Diane top from Barocco, the Climber's top, the Melon Sorbet shawl, the CD top, or the Cancun boxy lace top. If I could figure out how to get by without eating or sleeping, maybe I could get more of my current projects done, and then I could start in on some of those yummy patterns that we just looked at. As far as I am concerned, there is no such thing as too much viscose in my summer wardrobe. If you tend to avoid knitting or crocheting during the summer because wool is your primary fiber of choice, I hope that you are now considering a trip to your nearest LYS to track down some viscose to play with. If you want to give sugarcane a try and no one near you is selling it, help out a small business and order it from Grandma's Spinning Wheel. That's the place where I learn so much of this good stuff that I bring to you guys in these videos. We're happy to ship anywhere in the continental US. Thank you so much for watching today, and a big welcome to all of the subscribers who have recently started following my channel. I hope you enjoyed this yarn review, and please let me know if there is a specific yarn that you would like me to review in the future, a technique you'd like me to do a tutorial on, or any other yarn related topic that you would like me to cover. Coming up next will be my how-to video on magic looping 2 socks at a time on a single needle for people like me who suffer from single sock or single sleeve syndrome. Stay cool, stay hydrated, take time to make things that make you happy, and I'll see you next time.